Imagine a company designed, quite deliberately, never to make its owners rich. A company whose entire purpose is to charge its customers as little as it possibly can, and to drive its own prices, year after year, relentlessly towards zero. It sounds like a charity or a mistake. It is neither. It is one of the largest financial institutions on the planet. It manages the savings of tens of millions of ordinary people, and by being almost aggressively unprofitable for itself, it quietly changed how the whole world invests. It is called Vanguard. This is a series about the companies that run the world and the rivals they left behind. Today it is Vanguard, and the rivals it left behind are not one company, but an entire industry, an entire comfortable way of doing business that it made look, almost overnight, like a polite form of robbery. To understand how, you have to meet the man who built it, and the very strange idea he had about who a company should actually serve. The man was John Bogle, and in 1975 he founded Vanguard on a structure so unusual it is still almost unique. Most investment firms are owned by outside shareholders who quite reasonably want the firm to make big profits. Those profits come from fees charged to you, the customer, so there is a permanent, quiet tension. The firm is pulled between serving you and serving its owners. Bogle simply removed one side of that tension. He arranged for Vanguard to be owned by its own funds, which is to say, by its own customers. Think about what that does. Vanguard has no outside shareholders to enrich. When it makes money, it does not pay it out to distant investors, it gives it back to its customers in the form of ever lower fees. Every efficiency, every economy of scale flows straight back to the people whose money it manages. The company is structured from its very bones to have no reason to overcharge you because there is no separate owner standing behind it, waiting to be paid. But the structure was only half of it. Bogle paired it with an idea that, at the time, the entire industry considered either stupid or heretical. He championed something called the index fund. And to see why that mattered, you have to understand what the whole investment industry was quietly selling and how much of it was, to put it gently, an illusion. For generations, the business was built on a simple promise. Give us your money, and our brilliant experts will pick the best stocks and beat the market. And for this expertise, they charged handsome fees, every year, win or lose. It sounded obviously worth it. Surely anyone would pay a little to have a clever professional beat the average. Except that, when researchers actually checked, decade after decade, the great majority of those expensive experts did not beat the market. They underperformed it and then charged you for the privilege. Bogle's index fund did something almost insulting in its simplicity. Instead of paying experts to try and beat the market and usually fail, it just bought the entire market, a little slice of everything, and then sat still. No star managers, no frantic trading, no genius required. And because it did almost nothing, it could charge almost nothing. It quietly asked a devastating question. If the experts usually cannot beat simply owning everything, why are you paying them so much to try? For years, the industry mocked it. One rival famously branded it un-American, the idea of settling for the average. But the mockery faded as the results came in, relentlessly, year after year. The cheap fund that simply owned everything quietly beat most of the expensive funds that tried to be clever. Ordinary people noticed. And then, trillions of dollars began to move, slowly at first, and then in a flood, out of the expensive promise and into the cheap certainty. Here is the scale of what that idea became. Vanguard now manages something on the order of $9 trillion, almost all of it in low-cost funds. And it did not just win customers, it forced the entire industry to follow. The fees on investing across the whole market have collapsed towards zero, dragged down by Vanguard's relentless example. By one estimate, this shift has saved ordinary investors hundreds of billions of dollars in fees they would otherwise quietly have paid. Naturally, Vanguard is not alone anymore, and its rivals are giants. BlackRock, through its iShares funds, is enormous in this same low-cost world, and in many ways a fiercer competitor. State Street was an early pioneer of the exchange-traded fund, and Fidelity, an old-line rival, eventually went so far as to launch funds with literally zero fee, a shot fired directly at Vanguard's whole identity. The race to the bottom on price, which Vanguard started, is now a genuine war among the largest firms in finance. But here is what makes Vanguard's position so durable, even surrounded by giants. Its rivals mostly answer to shareholders who, in the end, want fatter profits. Vanguard answers only to its own customers. So, in a price war, a war of who can charge the least, Vanguard is structurally built to be comfortable at a level of pricing that is genuinely painful for a normal profit seeking company. It is very hard to win a race to zero against an opponent who was, by design, never trying to make money in the first place. So, the uncomfortable question this series keeps returning to arrives from an unexpected direction here. When hundreds of millions of people all quietly buy a slice of everything, a handful of index fund giants end up as major shareholders in almost every large company at once, including companies that compete fiercely with each other. Who is really watching how those companies are run when the biggest owner is a fund built to simply hold everything forever and think about it as little as possible? Now, to be fair, this is one of the most genuinely pro-consumer stories on this entire list, and it deserves to be said plainly. Bogle very likely did more direct good for ordinary savers than almost any other figure in modern finance. The fees he helped abolish were, for decades, a quiet drain on the retirements of millions. If there is a discomfort here, it is not about villainy. It is the strange new problem of what happens when a genuinely good idea succeeds so completely that it reshapes who owns the world. And that is the deeper lesson, in one of its gentler forms. Bogle did not get rich the way he could have. He built a company designed to give its advantage away, and in doing so, he became far more powerful than if he had simply tried to win. Vanguard's grip on the modern world was not built by beating everyone at the old game of charging more. It was built by refusing to play that game at all, and quietly proving that, for most of us, the cheapest, dullest, most patient path was the winning one all along.